Okay, so this piece dives deep into the rhetoric of figures like Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes, looking at anti-Semitism accusations and the political strategy behind it all. Let's jump right into making this really sharp analysis land with maximum impact.
Sounds good.
So the biggest thing that jumped out, I think, is really nailing down the core essence of the argument. The material central point, it just hits harder when the main focus shifts away from trying to guess the personal motivations of these guys.
And lands squarely on the confirmed strategic political outcomes they're actually getting.
Yeah, exactly. Because right now there's quite a bit of energy spent speculating, you know? Is Fuentes a genuine Nazi or more of a performance artist?
Right. Or is Tucker driven by principle, or is it just, a financial motive? And look, I get it. People are drawn to that question. It's human nature to wonder why.
It absolutely is. But the problem is chasing that why, the psychological or the money angle. It's always going to be speculative, isn't it?
Totally. You can't definitively prove it.
And getting bogged down there, it kind of dilutes the power of what you can prove, which is the observable political damage. I mean, your expertise here is clearly political analysis, not really psychoanalysis, right?
Right. We're not inside their head. So maybe treat that whole internal debate, is Fuentes sincere, as like preamble we don't really need.
Yeah, or at least acknowledge it briefly and move on. The suggestion is really to streamline it. Connect that provocative rhetoric, which you identify really well, straight to the negative political results you've already laid out.
Okay, so focus on the strategic impact, not the personal intent.
Precisely. And the way to do that, take that strong frame you've got, Fuentes as a Nazi performance artist, using Nazism as the ultimate FU. Great stuff.
Okay.
But then pivot immediately from that concept to the hard political conclusion you draw later.
So using that line, whatever the motivations, the effects are very malevolent. Make that the thesis for this whole section.
Exactly. It's like rhetorical judo. You acknowledge the motivation question exists, but then you instantly sideline it by focusing on what actually happens because of it.
And we have those documented consequences. We just need to bring them forward. So straight away, talk about fracturing the MAGA coalition. That's a concrete political risk.
Yes.
And also hitting on how it's chasing away Jews and blacks and Latinos from the Republican Party. That's observable. Plus the strategic goal you identified, trying to strong-arm groups like TPUSA and Heritage.
Okay, yeah, that framing. Analyzing it as a deliberate power move within the Republican Party, that feels much more solid than just questioning sincerity.
It elevates.
It does. It makes the critique robust. No matter how they try to spin their private thoughts later, the damage, the political damage, is real. That's the story.
Got it. Make the maneuver the focus, not the personality.
Okay, moving on. This ties into another area where the analysis can be even stronger, specifically when you tackle Tucker Carlson's, let's say, rhetorical inconsistencies on some really complex topics.
Okay, I think I know where you're going. The material shows deep knowledge, but maybe doesn't always deploy it fully on the page to counter him directly?
That's it exactly. So the critique of Tucker's alleged intellectual inconsistency, especially on tricky stuff like Christian Zionism or Sharia law, it would be way stronger if you turned those rhetorical questions you pose into direct, fact-based rebuttals.
Right now, the weakness is that we often point out Tucker's failure to defend himself. We ask, have you ever heard him give a reason?
Which is a fair question. But for someone who might already be leaning Tucker's way, that question leaves a gap, doesn't it? They might just think, well, maybe he did give a reason, I just missed it.
Yeah, it leaves an opening. Instead of showing why his reasoning is flawed, it just notes that it's missing.
And you guys clearly have the counter evidence. The knowledge is there in the material. So the suggestion is, stop asking why he doesn't defend it, and just show what the better argument or the counterfact is.
Okay, transform it from just pointing out a gap to actively demonstrating superior intellectual grounding. So like when addressing his claim that Christian Zionism is a heresy?
Yeah, he offers no real theological basis, as you correctly point out.
So the fix is concrete. When you mention that claim, immediately provide a specific theological or biblical reference point that refutes it. Don't just say he's shallow. Provide the depth he's missing.
Right. It moves it from opinion ping-pong to an actual assessment of the facts on the table.
Okay, and I see how that applies even more clearly with the Sharia law critique. He paints it as, creating an orderly society, picking places like Abu Dhabi.
Yep, cherry picking.
So instead of just asking, does he defend the consequences, we should offer those concrete, non-rhetorical examples of what he's ignoring.
Which you already have. You mentioned the fatwa risk for apostates, the oppression of women in many places. Drop those specifics right after his law and order claim.
That would immediately neutralize the superficial point much better than just asking about inconsistency. You show the cost of his selective view.
Exactly. And the same logic applies to his quite surprising defense of Maduro, the socialist leader. Tucker tries to frame him as just socially conservative.
Yeah, that one's jarring.
So you need to instantly counter that whitewash, but the specifics you already noted, like Maduro's known involvement in stuff like voodoo and Santeria.
Because that specific detail just demolishes the standard cultural conservative image he's trying to paint.
Completely. The moment you introduce those facts, his whole socially conservative narrative just collapses. Don't let the audience sit with Tucker's half-truth. Hit them immediately with the whole truth you possess.
Makes sense. Provide the counter-evidence proactively.
Okay, let's shift to the America First framing. The material does a great job identifying how figures like Tucker use this strategically, painting any critic as automatically Israel first.
Yeah, it flags that tactic effectively. But the current counter-argument, it feels a bit like it takes the bait, maybe. It gets defensive?
That's exactly the issue. So while you correctly spot Tucker's use of America First as a strategic label, the counter-argument needs to stop playing defense and proactively dismantle that frame by pivoting to the much bigger picture of hostile foreign influence.
Okay, the weakness right now is that the response becomes this sort of emotional defense of patriotism, like saying, no, we're America first by far.
Right. And when you do that, you inadvertently accept the premise they set up that supporting U.S. interests and supporting Israel are somehow fundamentally opposed. You're fighting on their turf.
So instead of just defending our own patriotism, we should use those really sharp points you make later about foreign lobbying in general.
Yes. Leverage that unique analysis. Shift the spotlight away from Israel specifically and onto the hostile foreign powers you mentioned Tucker seems to ignore or even support.
Okay, that's the pivot. We need to bring in that wider context much earlier and more forcefully. Start the lobbying conversation by highlighting the sheer scale of, say, the Qatari lobby, the Chinese, Japanese, Saudi lobbies, all of which you mentioned.
Absolutely. And use those killer facts you have about AIPAC. Point out it's made up of American citizens, not a foreign government. And crucially, hit them with the statistic that even if AIPAC was registered under FARA,
it still wouldn't be top 5 in terms of money flowing into D.C. from foreign interest.
That statistic is gold. It completely reframes the whole foreign influence debate for the listener. It breaks the obsessive focus on Israel.
Okay, so establish that broader context first. Then what?
Then you connect it back to the intellectual inconsistency point we just discussed. You highlight the material's claim that Qatar was actively lobbying against overthrowing Maduro.
Right.
And link that directly to Tucker's weirdly positive stance on Maduro, the narco-socialist.
Okay, so that creates this narrative. If Tucker is really America first, why the silence? Or even support for interests tied to major foreign players like Qatar backing Maduro?
Exactly. While focusing all his critical firepower on Israel's influence, it exposes a massive strategic hypocrisy that's hard to ignore.
That shifts the whole argument. It's not defensive anymore. It's pointing out his selective outrage. We move the fight to ground where he looks inconsistent.
Exactly. You're dictating the terms of the debate based on a wider set of facts. So, let's just quickly recap the main opportunities here to make this already strong critique even more impactful. It's really about sharpening the focus and deploying the facts you have more, decisively.
Right. So the main actionable goals are, number 1, shift the focus right away from guessing motivations to highlighting the proven political effect. Make that sophisticated analysis of the power move inside the GOP the absolute centerpiece.
Perfect. And number 2?
Number 2, use the deep expertise that's clearly here to just neutralize the rhetorical smokescreen. When Tucker makes claims about, say, Christian Zionism or Sharia law, don't just ask questions. Hit back immediately with the specific, foundational counter-evidence. Replace the questions with facts.
Excellent. And the last one?
And finally, actively dismantle that America First framing. Don't get drawn into defending patriotism. Instead, pivot hard. Use the evidence you have on other, massive foreign lobbies, link it directly to the policy positions Tucker takes, and expose the glaring inconsistency of his singular focus on Israel.
That's it. These adjustments will really leverage the strengths already present in the material, making the whole argument tighter, more logical, and ultimately much more persuasive by grounding it firmly in the strongest evidence.
Sounds like a plan.
We definitely encourage you to weave in these strategic changes. We think it'll make a big difference. And please submit the revised version back to us. We'd be very interested to see it.